The coaching staff with Mr. Playfair coming aboard, maybe just talk about what you hope he can bring and why he's the right choice here.
Well, I mean, I really count obviously on Dave Tippett. They worked together in the past. When I worked with Jeff Blashill, when I worked with Mike Babcock and Scotty Bowman, my feeling is that the head coach needs to put together a staff that he's comfortable with. They've worked together in the past, so he's been an NHL head coach, been an assistant coach. They've got a great relationship going back, obviously, to their days in Arizona. So certainly, I think it's a great addition to the staff. I don't know Jim that well. Certainly, but Dave has to go to work every day, and they have to get together in the coaches' room. So chemistry is very, very important to a coaching staff.
And with this trade situation with Yesapuli-Arvi, how are you approaching this request from them, and what's the likelihood that you will be able to find a deal that makes sense and move? And what's your sense here?
I don't have any sense,
Let me just use that.
So, if I can get a deal that I think makes sense to the Edmonton Oilers, we'll do something. If we can't, then I'll talk to Marcus Lato, his agent, next week. The reality is the trading period is this weekend. Next weekend everybody's focused on the development camps and the July 1st free agency and the interview period. So I'm talking to a lot of people, and if there's a deal to be made, we'll pull it. And if not, then I'll double back and talk to Marcus next week.
Would you prefer, or ideally, would the return be something that could help you in your lineup night in, night out this season, or is a deal for futures if their right futures makes sense?
I'd go either.
Either way.
Were you surprised by this, considering it's a fresh start for him with you here now and Dave here now? Was there a reason given for him not wanting to be here anymore?
Well, I mean, I wasn't surprised yesterday because I talked to Marcus Lato a few days after I became the general manager of the Oilers. So, he told me at that point in time they felt it was in their best interest for a fresh start. I've been in that situation many times before. Over 22 years, you see lots of situations. I was hoping to let the calendar go by a little bit, hire a new coach, and then we would reach out to Jesse. And obviously, things didn't change from my first conversation with Marcus. So certainly, I was hopeful that with a new manager and a new coach, that they would be. He's the 4th overall pick in the draft 3 years ago. He's 21 years of age. He's still a young player. My hope was that we could get him into an Oiler uniform and go about the process of developing him into the best player that he can be. Obviously, things have probably changed here over the last few days, but if I can do a deal, I'm going to do a deal. If there's no deal to be made, there's no deal to be made, and then we'll have to deal with the situation next week.
And you're okay with the idea that perhaps he spends a year in Europe if he's not willing to come to Edmonton?
Yeah, I am good. Yeah.
I know Milan's had his name in the rumor mill a lot lately. He's been away on vacation. Have you had a chance to connect with him since he's returned?
I have not connected with him. I've talked to his agent, but I have not connected with Milan.
Any talk of waiving? Will that come after you have a deal in place? If there's a deal, no trade with Milan, and that. So do you make that request ahead of time, or do you wait till after, or where's that at?
I don't have a deal.
Right. So that happens.
I think that. I just touched base with Milan's agent yesterday. When there's rumors, you guys chase rumors. I don't blame you. That's your job. Sometimes there's truth to rumors. Sometimes there's not. I think, my feeling as the manager of the Oilers, I'm brand new. Obviously, they had a tough year last year. There's some great pieces there. I have to work the phones, explore all options that I think can make us better in the short term and in the long term. And sometimes names get out in the media, and you have some small conversation that doesn't really lead to anything. Sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. But when it comes to a player that's got a no move, I don't really Gustav Nyquist had a no trade. I traded him at the deadline, and as I was just about to the finish line, certainly they signed off, but they were fully aware the Nyquist camp was. I'm only going on experience at the trade deadline, so right now I'm nowhere close to that right now.
What are you hoping to accomplish this weekend? And will you be disappointed if you don't add a player that can play on your roster, next year via trade or anything like that? Or
No, I'm worried about getting to camp in September. You want the news. I want to make sure that we're in a good spot in September. I think we focused obviously on the draft. We want to get we're going to get a good player at pick 8, and then we got some picks tomorrow. Done lots of talking, but there's always lots of talking. And we'll see if something comes of it.
There's lots of talk last year, not a lot of activity though on the draft floor. Do you get the sense that talking to other GMs this year that there could be more action than just talk?
I don't know. I'll let you know Saturday night. I don't know.
Kid, you have number 8. Like, are you really locked into, I want to hang on to that, or are you flexible to go, how flexible are you to perhaps go either way?
You can go by history. History suggests when I was in Detroit that, and we've traded back, but I've only, I've had 2 picks in the top 10 in Detroit. Pick 9 and pick 6. We used them both. If somebody comes and again, I got to answer the phone. If somebody comes with an offer that makes sense to the Edmonton Oilers to go back a little bit, I don't see us going back a long ways. I'd certainly listen. I expect that we're going to pick 8, but again, if something comes up, I would listen.
Do you feel reasonably comfortable that you'll get a goaltender of the caliber that you're hoping for, and kind of sense of the market?
I think so. Yeah, I feel good. Yeah. We'll get a goaltender. Yeah.
Is this a little bit different, knowing that you've been in the same room for years with the same faces around the table preparing for a draft, and now you're going in? I know you know a few guys, but it's a little bit different, I'm assuming, compared to your days with Detroit.
Yeah. Obviously, I worked with those people in Detroit a long time. I had a lot of people in Detroit. Jim Nill took a lot of them with him to Dallas in 2013 or thereabouts. So obviously put together a new staff in 13. But I sat in the amateur meetings. I was in there. We had, I think, 4 or 5 days listening to them, in May. And I feel good because, Detroit was it was a similar situation to Edmonton. So I was out and about. I was at the World Under-18s. I lived in Detroit. I'm 2 miles away from the U18 team. I saw them play 12, 15 times. They've obviously got a lot of kids that are going to go in the first round. So but at the end of the day, you're still relying on your scouts. They've seen 175 games each. I've seen 35 or 40. So, I asked the questions. I determine the direction and the philosophy, but certainly the first pick, the manager's really involved, and thereafter you're really counting on your people that are out in the field to find players. I don't think it's no different, in Edmonton than it was in Detroit. So I'm excited for the weekend. I think we're gonna, again, we got pick 8, and we need to walk away from this draft. And you got it down the road. You got 2, and you cross your fingers that you got 3 NHL players. That's how you speed the process up.
You referenced the USA players. You have a good look at them. Why do you think that program has produced those guys, and how do you kind of distinguish how good they are, considering they're always playing with cream of crop players?
Well, number one, it's the best age group class in the U.S. So they're picking the 20 best players of that age group from that country. So you're going to have a good team. And then the question that you just asked is the question for when you evaluate this draft class, the next year's draft class. Some kids are playing Tier 2, some kids are playing in the men's league in Finland, some kids are playing major junior, some kids are on the 4th line of a real good junior team, some kids are on a bad junior team are playing on the 1st or 2nd line. So they come from all over the place. That's the challenge, of trying to evaluate young players. And I think the other challenge of evaluating young players is most of these players have had lots of success, and there's adversity ahead. They're moving into a man's league. and how will they handle adversity. You know, you do all your research, you do all your checking, you do all your talking, but there's still an element of I don't want to use of the unknown as to how they're going to handle adversity, because handling adversity is a big part of being a successful pro.
Maybe in that program, though, they blow a lot of teams out and they're very successful. Is it hard to figure that out maybe sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, this year's team is a generational team. You know, I've been watching a long time. I mean, they've got 7, 8, 9 guys that could go in the first round or the top 10 and the top 40. I mean, that's a generational team. So obviously they had some nights when they blew out their opposition, but they had lots of, they played a college schedule. They didn't win the gold medal in the U18s. They won the bronze. So I mean, they had games where there was challenges, and it was good hockey games. So I mean, that's why you've got a scouting staff, and you try to see all those games. You're going to see some nights when they blow out teams, and some nights when they lose 1-0 or whatever they did to the Russians in the semifinals. So you gather all that information and make a decision.
Ken, do you agree with those who say that there's probably more than 10 guys NHL ready in the draft this year?
You mean to go in the NHL roster this year? No, I don't agree. I don't. But is that it? Thanks, guys.